friends. So just want to talk to you guys about the elections in Israel. And it's something that's been kind of bugging me. What I'm noticing about some of the commentary coming out of some of my friends on, I guess mostly on Facebook, and also commentary I see in some of these articles that pop up about, Bibi and Sar and all these different things. The thing that I'm noticing a disconnect with people. What is the disconnect? The disconnect with people is the fact that a lot of people seem to be looking at everything that's happening from what I call a derech hateva in Hebrew, from a very kind of too grounded of a way. What do I mean by that? You guys have to understand that everything that's been happening in the last 3 years, everything with Trump, everything with Israel, even everything up until this point, with the first two elections, has essentially been miraculous. It's been open miracles. And so the disconnect that I see, that I'm noticing, is the fact that people are having trouble understanding or grasping the fact that God is the one that, so to speak, makes kings. God is the one that decides elections. So a lot of you may come and say, well, what then is the point of our human effort? Might as well just sit back and do nothing. Right? If God's controlling everything, what's the point? Obviously, that's not what I'm saying. Obviously, we have a role to play here, right? But the point is, and we know this from the Torah, we know this from something called Hashkafa, Jewish philosophy, that Hashem has his own agenda. Books have been written about this. I'm not just speaking out of that I'm claiming to be some prophet or some Navi or some, soothsayer or fortune teller, whatever it is. We haven't had prophecy in, thousands of years. But if you understand what the goal of humanity is, which is essentially to do what's called the tikkun, to do the rectification, as it were, and that's really the goal of the Jewish people. That's the goal of Israel, of the land of Israel, of the state of Israel at this point. Rav Kook wrote about this. If you understand that, then you understand that Hashem actually has an agenda. And so sometimes there are moments in current events and human events where no matter what human beings do, no matter what their efforts are, Hashem can override. He can override everything. Not only he can override it, he can use anything and anybody he wants as a pawn to further his agenda. What do I mean by that? So I noticed some of you guys are posting that, Bibi's just a victim to the deep state. The same people that are trying to do what they're doing to Trump in, just one second guys, I'll just wait the camera here. The same people that are trying to do what they're doing to Trump are doing it, are trying to do the same thing to Bibi, right? I heard somebody mention George Soros' people, he pays people all over the world, blah, blah, blah. What's funny? I don't think it's actually the case, but even if it is the case, Hashem can do whatever he wants. Hashem can neutralize the deep state in America to keep somebody like a Trump in, who's basically the best, the most pro-Israel president America ever had. And on the flip side, what he could do in Israel is he could actually use the deep state, just like he used Lieberman, by the way, if you guys notice. He used Lieberman as a pawn to neutralize these two elections, to prove to us, to show to us that no matter what human beings do, you can have 10 elections, Bibi won't form a coalition. And I'll tell you why, guys. I'll tell you why Bibi's not the guy. I'll be honest with you guys. I tell people this all the time. I actually thought, this is going way back before when I lived in Israel, from 2010 until 2013, I actually thought that Bibi was going to be the guy. Those shirts, don't be that guy? Well, I thought he was going to be the guy. And the guy, I thought he was going to be the guy to educate the Jewish people, or to put into the education system of Israel, to bring slowly bring Torah and knowledge of Torah into the education system in Israel. I don't mean be Haredi, I don't mean be black hat, put on payas, run around Bnei Brak and Mei Shearim. I'm talking about for the Jewish people to know who they are as a nation, what they possess. You know, the heritage they possess, the Torah they possess. You know, if you come up to any kid on the streets of Tel Aviv and ask him what's Shema Israel, he's going to tell you, oh, isn't that a song by Eyal Golan? You know, they definitely won't tell you that it's a, you know, it's the most, you know, famous prayer in all of Judaism, and forget about telling you what it actually means. You know, the unity of God and the singularity, whatever it is. You know, it's a whole discussion what it actually means. They don't even know what it is, and that's like, I would say that's criminal. And you look at Bibi, and it seems to me that Bibi is just basically on all fronts apathetic. He's apathetic towards putting spirituality back into society. He's apathetic about Hamas in Gaza, which he's done nothing really about apart from bombing empty buildings. On top of that, releasing 1,100 murderers in exchange for a soldier. One of those murderers actually, and we know this for a fact because we saw him on camera, in a video. He was on a bus being released from prison, and then we see him as the the chief of the military of Hamas. You know, Yahya Sinwar. You know, a bunch of those murderers went back to murdering. So now you exchanged 1,100 murderers for one Israeli soldier. You know, and then when there's attacks in Judea and Samaria, what do? You go to, you know, people's houses and you pay them lip service at their shiva. You know, as they're mourning their relative who just got, you know, pelted, stabbed, or killed by, you know, shot, or I don't know, pelted by rocks or whatever it is. So for 10 years we have a guy who basically is apathetic. He's apathetic to the biggest issues in the state, and he's apathetic about, you know, I liken him to a Noach, a person who knew God, who knew everything about Hashem, but did nothing to help those around him, or to spread that word, or to empower people to spread that word, and therefore the world around him was destroyed. Luckily, in this case, Israel's not going to be destroyed, but unfortunately, a guy like that, Hashem can give him chance after chance after chance after chance, but his time is running out. His time just ran out. So all you guys are saying, oh, it's a deep state, and Bibi's the only guy who can lead us, and la la la. I'll tell you guys, you might even be right, that it might be the deep state. But you know what? Who says Hashem can't use the deep state to take out this guy who he has basically no use for anymore? A guy who's just kind of placating and patronizing the Haredi society, you know, the people who basically hold, and also the Dati Leumi society, instead of actually working from within the secular education system to bring the Torah and knowledge of Hashem back into society. And I'm not talking about via coercion and via forcing people, you know, forget about what, Bezalel Smotrich says, oh, we're going to, if we only use the Torah for certain economic principles and certain military principles. No, we're not going to do that. That's coercion. You know, we're not you know, this isn't Mashiach yet. But, you know, to be a person who comes from, I guess, the secular Zionist world, and yet has a grasp of Torah. You know, his son was a champion of the Tanakh contest, and not do anything about changing the societal, educational, moral fabric of society is, again, it's criminal. It's a crime to not lift a finger about it. If you ask me, guys, I think that it's going to take somebody from that wing of the political sphere, maybe a person who keeps Shabbat, maybe a person who, you know, had some sort of life kind of change or epiphanies, to come in from within those circles, and a person also who knows the education system in Israel, and to maybe come in and just slowly turn the dial in the other direction. You know, kind of like what Obama did in America in the other direction, where basically kids were taught certain things in elementary school, certain values and principles that were like, I'm not even going to go into what they were taught. So by the time they got to college, they were so brainwashed, and now we see what's going on college campuses. So there could be a person in Israel that comes in and does the exact opposite, the exact reverse, also from within. Not necessarily a person who wears a kippah, not necessarily a person who's outwardly religious, you know, Dati Leumi or whatever, you know, to scare the ever-living daylights out of everybody. and just comes in and slowly turns the dial back to the Jewish people, the next generation of students, knowing what their heritage is, knowing what's Hebron, what is Shechem, what is Mount Gerizim, what is Tel Shiloh, what is Susia, what is the Shema, what is the Tanakh, what is the Torah, what are all these things? We're going to be annexing Judea and Samaria. Who are the people who live in Judea and Samaria? Maybe they need to meet. Segments of society have to encounter each other. People from Tel Aviv, kids from Tel Aviv, like 8-year-old kids, 5-year-old kids from Tel Aviv have to meet kids from Har Bracha and from Eli and from Susia and Shiloh. They will gladly invite you for Shabbos. I'm telling you, so some of the sweetest people you'll ever meet. People from Tel Aviv have to meet people from Har Bracha or even Yitzhar. Things like this. There are segments of society in Israel that never see each other. They don't know anything about each other. They think everybody else is an abstraction. People in the settlements think Tel Aviv people are an abstraction. People in the Tel Aviv cafes and bars think that people in Hebron and Kiryat Arba are an abstraction. Not only an abstraction, but an impediment to peace, which is nothing further from the truth, as we know. So there has to be somebody that comes in and just little by little just starts installing these tiny societal and educational changes. Somebody who knows the right buttons to push in the system. That's really what's needed now to bring us to the next stage of Jewish history, as my friend puts it. Because right now we're just, as Bibi always says, we're at status quo. We want to keep the status quo. We want to keep the status quo on Temple Mount. We want to keep the status quo here, status quo in Gaza, status quo here in Judea and Samaria, status quo, status quo, status quo. The problem is the Jewish people, history is not even meant to be kept at status quo. It has to move forward. It has to be driven, as my friend Yehuda Cohen puts it, it has to be driven forward. It shouldn't be driven forward into a brick wall or off a cliff, but it cannot be stagnant. It definitely cannot be stagnant, I can tell you that. So friends, to those of you who are saying, oh, it's the deep state, and Bibi's the only one, and blah, 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 and this and that, and blah, 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 I say to you, you got to change your lens. Like in the you guys see, I've been rubbing the lens on this camera because I got like condensation in my car, or whatever it is. You gotta change your lens and understand that everything that's been happening is really Hashem is doing the override. He pressed the override button, and he's not going to stop until human beings carry out what he wants at this particular moment. What he wants at this particular moment is for the Jewish people to come back to him. And the guy, he's not going to let a guy be prime minister who's not going to enable that process. And again, Bibi could have, I'm telling you, Bibi could have been that guy. He had ample opportunity to be that guy, and he wasn't. Unfortunately, he was not. He did a lot for the economy. He was very good adept at fending off a guy like Obama, the most anti-Israel, president in American history. He did his job, but he could have done much more. And he, in many ways, he succeeded. In many ways, he actually failed. And those of you guys saying, well, what's going to be? We can't just dismantle Likud. We can't just this. And SAR's going to weaken Likud. And we're going to have the lefties and da-da-da-da. I'm telling you, folks, first of all, sit down, take a breather, calm down. I was joking with some friends of mine. I said, the people who are having trouble grasping what's happening to Bibi right now are like, I liken it, lahavdil, to Lubavitchers, Lubavitch Hasidim, who their reactions right after the Rebbe passed away. Just totally in denial, totally inconsolable, totally to the point where some of them, actually think he's alive to this day, 25 years later. So, friends, sit down, take a breather, try to see it, in the words of John Lennon, try to see it my way. For a second. You don't have to agree with me totally, but try to see it from the perspective that Hashem is now controlling all of these events. He's been controlling them pretty much since Trump's election, which is a biblical miracle, open miracle in and of itself. And the saga continues. What you guys are going to see in the next coming weeks, in the next, I'll say 2 weeks, probably by Hanukkah, is going to be something that's going to shock you. folks, just so you know, I'm saying a lot of the stuff I'm saying in the name of Rabbi Mendel Kessin. Maybe you guys are listening to some of his shares, maybe not. Again, this is not prophecy. We haven't had prophecy in 3,000 years, and we don't have it now. This is not prophecy. All you have to do is look at what's called hashkafa in Hebrew, Jewish philosophy, and understand, also Kabbalah and Zohar, and understand that there is an agenda here. There's an agenda that Hashem has, and again, if you have the disconnect of not understanding that Hashem does play a role in people's individual lives and also the collective, what's called this hashgacha pratit, private supervision, and also hashgacha klalit, which is global supervision. All you have to do is understand that, and then you understand completely what's going on with what's happening in Israel today. And then you will not be freaking out about, oh my God, what was me? What's going to be with Likud and Bibi and deep state and Soros and all these things. You'll understand that Hashem does whatever He wants, with whomever He wants, whenever He wants, however He wants, and if He wants to use a deep state if He wants to neutralize a deep state to help Trump, or if He wants to use the deep state to further His agenda in Israel, He'll do just that. I welcome your comments, friends, and I guess we'll see what happens.